Welcome to Your Brand Amplified, the podcast where we interview marketers, publicists, and brands to learn their stories, what makes them tick, and tips and tricks that make a difference. This has been a long-awaited conversation for me with Ericka Saurit of Saurit Creative. I'm so glad that we finally get to Zoom in together, and I'm really excited about some of the things that we're going to be planning for my class and other ways to work together after this. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Ericka. I'm super excited to be here and share my story.
So speaking of, let's get right into your story. You've
Jump into it.
A lot of really fantastic places that people will recognize by name. And then you created your own agency. Bring us back to the beginning.
Yeah, I'll start with, I'm a brand marketing strategist. I focus on interior designers and manufacturers or makers in the home industry. And that is really anybody who's involved in creating residential space. So that can be, interior designers themselves, but also work with architects and builders, contractors, sometimes realtors even, and then makers, people who, large manufacturers of furniture or art or flooring, rugs, all of that. That's what the home industry encompasses. So those are my clients. And I will say it's probably a surprise because I think our popular culture recently, over the last maybe 10 years, has put a lot of focus on the home, right? And, COVID brought that into an awareness for many of us because we spend so much time at home. But you would be surprised to know that in the interior design industry, within the home industry, that interior designers are brought in at the very last moment, usually on projects like on renovations or rehabilitations or even new builds. A client might go specifically to a builder or to an architect, and interior designers aren't really brought in until the end. In a lot of cases, that is unfortunate because the expertise that they can bring about, not just decoration, but for how space can really transform the way you live and transform your experience and your wellness and your mental health and all the things that, an interior designer has a special knowledge about or a specialty in. So as a former interior designer myself, I'm really passionate about making sure that interior designers see themselves not just as a business, but as a brand, so that that clients have awareness around what the value of interior design is, so that they're brought in sooner, that they're leveraged better on a project, rather than being brought in too late, and that that we all together can kind of increase the power and the brand power behind interior design, what that really can mean for more people.
Yeah, that is so key. I was saying before we got on, I have this great Zoom background because I have moved my office into my garage, which is set up as a great space. We have fans and TVs and lighting, but my background, I haven't made it look the way I want it to look yet, right? But
your virtual background is fantastic, so it looks great.
And I'm working from home, starting that during COVID and then continuing. My office was in a corner of my living room, which took up space. Yeah. It was great for me because it was nice and cool and I could look out the windows. But just even pulling my office into a different space has transformed my interior space. And it's made it the flow of energy and just the flow of the light. And the way that I feel walking into that space is so much better. And it is transformative. And then I think about, I've had guests come on talk about feng shui for your home and your office. So you don't consider these things when you're at the very beginning stages of building out your space. It's a huge disadvantage.
It really is. Yeah. I would say probably moving your office from your living room into your garage, did it make you more productive? Did it also make a big division between your work time and your downtime or your family time or your time off work? I imagine that it did if it wasn't sitting there looking at it all the time. It wasn't in your face. Yeah.
Yeah, it has made a difference. There's still some fine tuning I need to do to, like when I'm in Southern California, and at the beach, so it doesn't really get too hot, but that can be an issue. So there's a lot of little tweaks I need to make along the way, but I would have loved to have consulted with somebody. I didn't think about that, to say, how can I better design this space and make it more usable?
Well, that's part of the brand problem because, you would never think of, even though I know people who do this, but you would never think of buying a house without using a realtor, right? You would never think of building your own house without an architect. You would never think of building your own car. So what makes people think that they can, or build, let's say this too, you would never build your own brand, right? You know that there's an expert out there who can help you with that. But unfortunately, I feel like interior design has a bigger brand problem when it comes to people really understanding the value and the importance of what a designer can do for you.
And did you start out as a designer first and realize that this was an issue in the industry?
Yeah. In fact, my background, I grew up in High Point, North Carolina, which is the home of home furnishings. It literally is called the furniture capital of the world. So I grew up, there were a lot of manufacturers there because North Carolina has a lot of, historically had, the reason it was there, it was full of woods. It was a lot of wood, and which made furniture making really possible. There was also a big textile industry because of all the cotton. And then, of course, there were railways that went up and down the East Coast and then eventually went west. So there was, the production capacity was there, the materials were there, the labor force was there, and then eventually there was a transportation network to distribute the furniture. And so it, over 100 years, has been hosting like a furniture market, and it calls itself this. There's still a lot of furniture production in North Carolina. It's similar to the industry of, cars from Detroit. I did some research on this. It's about a $7 billion asset to the state economy, which is aligned with, surprisingly, tech and agriculture separately, not together, of course, in California. So it's a huge industry. I grew up there. I grew up amongst furniture and design. That was always sort of in my world. My family didn't do that directly, but it was always sort of happening around me. And this, market, this furniture market happened every year. And so I was really fascinated. But I went to school originally. I have a Bachelor of Fine Art in studio art. So I learned how to make things. I loved drawing and painting and making. And I left with a degree in sculpture. And I was making these big kind of environmental sculptures, which were about really the body moving through space, which was kind of interior design, but I didn't really put that together. I didn't really put fine art and design together until after I graduated. I worked for a while in landscape architecture, and I saw how a business with creative people could work. And I did that enough where I thought, okay, I'm going to go back to school. I really am going to pursue interior design. So I went back to graduate school for interior architecture and did that. And then when I graduated, I taught at the university level for a while, which was really amazing. Really, like it's such a, you have such a cool way of, influencing young minds. It sounds so dreamy to say that, but I think that teaching is super important. Super important. So good for you.
Thank you. I leave class feeling so happy, because...
And inspired.
Yeah, sure. And inspired, right. Because we are really helping a lot of students, even at the graduate level, don't necessarily know their what next.
Yep.
And so to that point, from my class right now, PR and branding, we're building their personal brands so they can figure out who their ideal job, who are they going to talk to? Do they want to be at a large agency? Do they want to go out on their own? Do they want to start their own business? Do they want to work in-house somewhere? What does that look like? And how do they position themselves to get that job? And
that's great.
So that's, it's not like I'm having to talk to my class because I don't even, this is before we met. I didn't even really think about, oh my gosh, yes, interior design has a branding issue. People
a huge one.
think about furniture, but we think about like you go to Amazon or you go to the big home furnishing stores or you go to, whatever store, but you don't think of it as necessarily as a brand itself, although they all are individual brands. And the people who are coming to design are individual brands. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
there's work to do.
There's a lot of work to do. So
there's work to do.
So you started out, you were in interior design. You were also creating sculpture.
Yeah. So I did that for about 10 years and I had the fortune to work all around the world. I spent about combination of about 7 years in China, which was amazing. I worked for really huge corporate clients. I did a lot of cultural work, hospitality, and then some high-end residential. So I got to see a really broad kind of range of the different verticals of interior design. Around the kind of last part of those 10 years, I was pulled on to support the marketing team because I was able to kind of translate the interior design or the design team's intention into a story, something that was really fast that the client could understand. Because if a lot of times I would see designers come into client presentations, and I would say this for my friends in graphic design as well and UX, they all had the same kind of very long-winded process story. This is how we did this and this is how we did that. And the clients don't care. Clients really want to know, how is this going to, meet our goals? Are we going to make money? If it's about, maybe high-end residential, are we going to sell more units? How does this meet our business goals? And I was able to take the intention of the design team and marry that with the business or strategic goals and tell it in a story and capture their attention and get the project sold. So the marketing team was like, come with us. I was like, great. I left AutoCAD behind and I moved into marketing functions to support them with creative marketing initially. Eventually, I went back to school. This was sort of at the dawn of, I will say, social media, like Instagram. So like 2012, 2011. And I got to I got to really get in, especially in China, when the social media there was really exciting. Things that are really common now here in the US, but the idea of like how influencers can help brands. And so we got to, I got to see a lot of those techniques, I would say, applied to the design industry. I came back to the US. I went back to school. I studied to get a more formal marketing background, my sort of education and fundamentals. And I've been lucky to work with some of the really kind of smartest marketing mentors and leaders. And, as I went, I worked for great companies. I did a wide range of different types of marketing work. I worked for manufacturers, global manufacturers of home furnishings. I worked for design agencies selling interior design in spaces and corporate and cultural work. And I also worked for a global tech company doing hospitality interior design. It was Airbnb. And so I got to see so many different aspects of how people perceive and think about interior design. And so in 2020, when the world changed, everything changed, I decided, like many, many, many other women entrepreneurs, and I mean, entrepreneurs in general, I decided, you know what? I think that I want to start my own thing. I'm going to be home for who knows how long. And I think now's a good time. So I called up all the manufacturers and designers and architects that I knew. And I said, look, I know what you're going through. All your clients are now, at home. Are you digitally ready? What does your brand say about your business values right now? Is all of that aligned? And if it's not, how can I help you? And Saurit Creative was born from that experience, and that catches you up.
Yeah. I love that, because I always tell a story when I'm aging myself to my students too, in the late 90s, early 2000s, when I launched a dance music magazine. Actually, I lived in San Francisco at the time. And then I launched—
How cool is that?
magazine, and I was launch marketing, but I had to go into like AOL chat rooms for music lovers and find street teams. I was like, that was like really early days of influencer marketing. And so I love that you were able to take your experience in China, seeing a lot of the innovations in social media that weren't here yet.
Right.
And bring them over to these other companies that you're working with. And then, part of the thing with the pandemic is that small businesses had to digitize about 7 years before most of them were ready to.
Yep.
So the fact that you had all of these skill sets, you understood it from the design and the business side, and you knew how to storytell for the marketing side, had to have been a huge asset. And what a great way to be able to start your own company and rebrand yourself even.
Yeah. Thank you for putting all those things together. Hindsight is 2020. We always look back and say, oh, yeah, everything makes sense now. But I think I have always just done what felt right, trusted my instincts, and really, not looked back. And I think I did this with the same kind of rigor, if you can call it that. I sort of jumped in and not knowing, just trusting that I trusted myself. I knew that I, was capable. I knew that nobody else was really doing what I was doing. And, if I failed, the worst thing that could happen was I just go get another job. And that's that. And at least I would have tried it. And I think that is a big part of starting your own business, and is just sort of doing it. The first step is the hardest, but you just jump into it and you trust that you'll figure out what you need, or you'll find people who will support you in the ways that you need when you're ready.
Absolutely. You're open and the universe provides. Not to, tokenize it or make it like sound funny.
No, I get it.
Yeah. I want to ask, because one thing that really sets Airbnb apart, because I know there's Vrbo and there's other big companies, is the design aspect and the fact that you can get just a room somewhere. But I know that when I and my friends or my partner, we're looking for places, we look for really beautiful design.
Yes.
We're willing to spend that extra, bit of money to make sure that we have a really amazing experience and that it's going to be something that we don't have at home. Right. Mm-hmm. So how did you then, with your role at Airbnb, what exactly did you do and how did you help translate those elements into what people see when they go to the website or in the advertising or on the social media?
What I did at Airbnb was really exciting. I sat in between the environments team, which is architects and interior designers who design mostly the office spaces, but also contribute to, subject matter expertise around some of the other kind of products that are being developed. And I was on a team called Airbnb Plus, which was created sort of a little bit above the marketplace to highlight homes that had significantly really important, beautiful design, but also who had hosts who really understood what it meant to, provide excellent hospitality to their guests, because guests care about that too. The beautiful design is important, but the experience, how you feel, what you're welcomed with, the amenities, all of those things are important too. So I sat in between these two teams to sort of help translate and create a set of guidelines that we could roll out to hosts, that we could scale for this program. And it was super exciting. We piloted a lot of different tests on what made good design, because that's very subjective, right? It's not a style that makes design. And that's complicated. Another part of interior design's brand problem, but good interior design is about making people feel welcome. It's about creating an experience that they're going to remember. That's certainly what hosts want, because they want people to make comments. They want them to come back if they're coming to the same region again. And so those things are all super, super important, but we had to be really strategic about how we productized that and created guidelines that we could roll out around the world. As you know, Airbnb is a global platform. And so what I've learned from that and what I've taken from that experience has been really helpful, because now there are tons of interior designers who are either working as their own investors, right? They're buying properties, they're collaborating with builders or with contractors who maybe even developers doing multifamily or multi-use properties. They're creating Airbnbs that are beautiful, that they know design is a sales tool for, that the photos are great, the experience is great. They know exactly what that criteria looks like. And there's a whole community around this. I'm actually on the planning board for our second annual Vacation Rental Design Conference, it's actually Vacation Rental Design Summit. It will happen next spring. We did one this past spring, and we focused it specifically on design. So how do you really use design to help make, vacation rental or short-term rental better, more valuable? Yeah. And so we're doing that again. And so now a lot of my clients who come to me are interior designers that want to create a new business with vacation rental design. And I'm just overjoyed to help them, because it is a new brand. It's sort of an extension of their business. Mm-hmm. And I think it's just going to continue to grow and grow. And I can't wait to see what happens. So
yeah, people still, especially now with hearing that other strains of COVID are coming out and there's so much unknown.
I heard that too.
But people still want to travel. And so, but having that comfort of a home environment versus a hotel or somewhere that's less personal, right? People are still going to want that. And I think it's going to just continue to increase. So I'd love to hear about your storytelling framework that you I know that you have a specific way that you tee things up to make sure that you're getting them to really see who they are.
Yeah.
Know how to express that through their storytelling. Are you ready to take your brand to new heights? Join the Brand Amplifier for Entrepreneurs program. Learn how to build, elevate, and amplify your brand with a comprehensive 10-module course. Learn more about it and other ways to implement our strategies at fullcapacitymarketing.com. Click on EFCM Learning Hub for more information. Can't wait to help you amplify your brand.
So I help clients with branding and marketing. And the thing I kind of lead with is interior designers. I want you to think of yourself as not just a business, but also a brand. And in order to get to that, I think I have to kind of back up and I say, the best brands are not simply about a logo. I mean, all of this, but when you talk to clients, sometimes you have to really kind of draw them into it. A brand isn't just a logo, right? It's like an emotion. It's a feeling. It's a memory. It's less tangible. And so you are more than your logo, right? You are more than your website or your Instagram or your feed or any of that. You are a full experience. And so this strategy that we start with to help them understand who they are as a brand and then how we translate that into, an identity or a website or a social strategy or an email campaign, it all has to start at the top with this framework. And I call it the E3 storytelling framework. I'm Ericka, so it's easy to remember. Each of the words starts with an E and there's 3 of them. So the first one is what makes you extraordinary. That's your differentiator. That is also your position, right? How do you line up next to your competition? With interior design, there are plenty of either local competitors or there are maybe even national, or when it comes to vacation rental design, locations doesn't matter, right? So how do you position yourself? What is it that makes you different enough so that when someone has 3 design websites or 3 design Instagram accounts in front of them, what is it that you're saying? If all the work looks the same, looks amazing, they're excited about it, what are you saying that differentiates you? Is it your culture? Is it your background? Is it your education? Is it something else? Like, you do something on the side, right? So we really dig into that. I mean, it's very basic for branding, but for designers, it's super important that they celebrate that because a lot of designers come from backgrounds that aren't design related. They may come from a background in healthcare. A lot of designers will come because they recognize, the environment and how it helps to kind of increase wellness. A lot of designers come from backgrounds in finance or other disciplines. So we really focus on those things and help them to see that they are valuable and differentiate them from other designers. The second E is emotional resonance. This is my favorite one. This is the connection that you build with your ideal client. And I've identified within interior design, there are 5 core emotions that drive the not necessarily purchase behavior, but they drive the decision-making behind clients. And if you're familiar with any other brand marketing for products or for, I would say, especially for consumer, like fast-moving consumer goods, there are many, 20 or so core emotions that drive us to select one toothpaste or another over another. But in interior design, really within all of my working experience and sort of observation with clients, I've narrowed them down to 5. And the first one is a sense of belonging. And this really resonates with families, people who are designing for family homes. They want to create a place where, the kids from the neighborhood will come to stay. They want to create a place where their kids come back from college because they belong there. They don't feel like they moved out, empty nest, I'm done, I don't need to go home anymore. The parents want to create, or the family creates a sense of belonging from the environment. So this really resonates with a lot of interior designer clients who may come to an interior designer wanting a renovation or an addition or a kitchen reno, but deeper down, there's a reason they're looking for that particular service. And interior designers with this second E, this emotional resonance, can tap into that. The second one is to be seen or heard. Mm-hmm. And this is true for a lot of different types of brands, but especially for interior designers, because they're creating a space that reflects. A lot of designers say, I want to create, a space for you that reflects your personality. Well, what does that mean, right? The core emotion driving someone who wants to be seen or heard is that they are in a transition point in their life, potentially, right? They've gone through, I would say, a marriage or a divorce. The kids are, like I said, kids are moving out. They want to impress their neighbors. They're a young professional who perhaps is having their first apartment. The idea that their space can reflect, anything about them, it comes from a place of wanting to be seen and heard. And it's a positive thing. None of these, any reflection at all, to be anything but like motivations, right? The third one is that our life has purpose and meaning, and we look for that in our space and our home. This is about creating something bigger than yourself, like leaving a legacy. A lot of designers have clients that come with wanting to create a place that they can pass down or create an asset. And this is usually maybe a second home or a third home or a vacation home, a family home that will allow them to kind of create multiple meanings. This is usually seen with the next one, which is hope for the future. And this is, again, tied to the same kind of meaning and emotion. I'm trying to go through these pretty quickly. The last one is wonder and wonder. So wonder with an O and wonder with an A, right? And the idea that you discover something about yourself when you look at the world, in a bigger way. And the idea of discovery, adventure, enchantment, all of that is tied up in this last one. And so those 5 core emotions are where we start with storytelling for designers with their clients. And then the final E is experiential touch points. How do you map that story once you know the emotional resonance and your extraordinary piece? How do you map that to an experience that you can, you'll say across the entire funnel, but how do you map that to the physical and digital touch points that you provide for your clients? And so we show them then what that looks like and how every single action from their welcome mat to the kind of final checklist, the sign off of the space, to the thank you note, to all of the, anything they do after that full circle of experiences are all tied to their brand and how their clients will feel about them. So that E3 framework, E3 storytelling framework becomes is a strategy for helping them to understand how to think like a brand. And we make sure that they understand that it's not something that happens overnight. It's not something that happens in a couple of weeks. It takes time to build a brand. And that's the biggest investment they can make in their business.
Absolutely. In the world of PR, I find the same thing with my clients where a lot of people say, okay, I have a logo, I have a website, I've started my social media, but you don't have a brand.
No, you have a business.
Take a step back and let's go through the process. Let's look at your brand blueprint and all these approaches and your customer personas and some of the same things that you're saying in different language. I love the way that you distilled this for your audience. And what I wrote down while you were talking was it's really helping people understand that their home is their brand.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you want, I know when people come over, it might be a little messy because I have dogs and kid and all the different things, right? I might have clutter here and there, but people always feel welcome. They always feel at peace. And that's a feeling I want them to feel when they come over. And I'm really yes, your home really is an extension of your brand. And so you're helping create brands for your clients that will help them create brands that are extensions of their clients as well. So it's kind of a big circle.
Yeah, I think a lot of designers or other creative service providers, they spend a lot of time writing out who they are, right? I have this education, or I have this size team, we're skilled at, these bullet. We can do all these, we have all these capabilities. But honestly, what people really want to know is how you can make their life better, how you're going to make it easier, how you're going to bring their kids home, how you're going to make it better kitchen for them to practice the Italian recipes they learned on their last vacation. People want to have meaning, and the brand that we help people create and the messaging around that, it's the opportunity for them to really express this. And it's a miss without it. A lot of businesses don't realize that. So it could become a brand, not just a business.
And what strikes me is this really applies to anybody who's moving from a corporate job or one industry into entrepreneurship in any form.
Right.
And I didn't realize that so many interior designers came from these other backgrounds. So that's what happens a lot when somebody realizes what their passion is, or they see something that really calls to them. It might be completely divergent in some ways, but still connected to what they did before. So this framework and thinking about and realizing that you have a story to tell for your brand to get to your ideal client, that is so important to build that up.
Yeah. Do you know the writer Elizabeth Gilbert?
Yes.
Okay. She wrote this book. I read it every summer when I go on vacation because it's super fast. It's super easy to read, and it always inspires me. It puts me back in the mindset of everything is important that you're doing. It's called Big Magic, and it's about, have you read that?
I have it. I don't think I'm going to add it to my immediate list.
It's a fast read. And I think she wrote it, to get so many kind of stories and sort of ideas out of her own head. It's a fast and very simple thing to get through. But what it does is it always reminds me that living this creative life, and creative doesn't have to mean that you make things, right? It doesn't have to mean that you're an artist. Living a creative life means that you give yourself permission to follow all the things that you love. You don't have to put them together. You don't have to explain yourself to anybody. You're just doing it because you know you can. Like she says, we were all created and therefore we're creative. And I love that. It's a great reminder that, you can do what you want. Give yourself permission to jump from one thing to another, and it's okay.
Yes, that is resonating deeply right now. I love that. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, you're welcome. And she's a great storyteller, so it's funny.
Yeah. Now, since you started your business during our big break that we all had,
yeah,
what have been some of the highlights of your career since then?
So I had the opportunity. Some other things were happening in my personal life. I went through a divorce, which was happening kind of prior to COVID or prior to that period as well. But it allowed me to physically move. Now I spend my time between the south of France, which is where I am now, actually, and the US. Yeah, I have 2 partners here and they're also great friends. And they said, you can run your business from anywhere. Why don't you try it from France? And I said, okay, sure, why not? That was about 2 years ago. And now I'm here part-time. And, my clients are really, let's say, very flexible. Everybody's used to being on Zoom calls now. Everyone's used to, digital, a different type of working. And so it makes sense. And I'm able to leverage a much larger global pool of freelancers than I had access to before. I think that's really wonderful. I don't want these people to come back and get jobs. Like, stay with me. Stay with me in the digital world. And I say these people being one of them myself, like, working remotely is really exciting and it allows for a lot of different businesses to evolve in new ways that we didn't have before. So I would say that's a fantastic bit of collateral from that and the ability to be in different places. I'm really happy for that because something that inspires me more than anything is travel and figuring out, different cultures and observing different ways of living and working and being inspired every day when I walk out the door, no matter where I am. So.
Oh my gosh. Yes. That is, I think, a lot of people's ideal is what you've created for yourself. So
well, get in touch. I'm happy to share some tips.
Yes. I'm going to have to, I was in Antibes this summer for a short time.
Yeah. Nice.
So my daughter was doing language immersion and I was having a lot of issues with internet. So I'll have to get tips. Next time I'm coming to France, I'll have to get some tips from you on that.
Let me know.
I will. So what are some ways that people can work with you now? Do they just go to your website first and fill out some information?
Yeah.
Free resources people can review?
Yeah.
And is your ideal client the interior designer, or it can be anything in that industry from the builder to...
Yep. Creative service providers. I say, marketing is tied to business. It's very difficult to understand how to be strategic if you don't understand how a business works or how an industry works. So, my specialization is interior design and the built environment, but that encompasses many different types of services. But I'm easy to find, very easy to find. Everything is Saurit Creative, Saurit Creative. My website.com. I'm on Instagram at Saurit Creative, LinkedIn, Ericka Saurit, and also Saurit Creative. And then I put a lot of thought into my newsletter. I really love getting, and I had done this for many, many years, newsletter design kind of early in my marketing career. So I realized, people are going to delete immediately something that's not of value. So I put a lot of thought into my own newsletter. So you can sign up for that on my website. I have a brand audit, which I use as a lead generator, or you can, reach out to me directly to get on that newsletter. But the brand audit is just a way to see how your brand message is showing up on one page. And it will prompt you to either type in directly into a PDF or you can do screenshots, whatever your process is. But once you see, I ask you to put the first line of copy on your website, put together all the social bios that you have, put together what's on your email signature, what's on your business card if you have one. What do you say when you introduce yourself at a party? Like, how would a client refer you? And put all of those on one page and take a look and see where there always are, because these things evolve sometimes over time with the business. But looking at that will help you understand if you're confused and you're seeing inconsistencies, how can you expect a client to understand exactly what you do? So I help a lot of clients get their story straight. That's sort of one thing I focus on is messaging. And this is a great place to start. It will help you see, what channels need to be updated if it's been a while, what your client might be seeing about you and what needs to be clarified. So that is on my website, sauritcreative.com/brand audit, all one word. And then you'll be on my email list as well, which I'm happy to share. I only do 1 or 2 per month, and I try to make them as valuable as possible. So that's it. Yeah, get in touch. I also would love to talk about travel if that's something that you're looking forward to doing, if you want to move abroad or spend some time abroad or work abroad. I've got lots of experience doing that. So happy to share my insight.
Fantastic. And then you also do workshops that people can sign up for?
Absolutely. Yes. And I'm developing a course.
Wonderful.
This course, I already have a course, which has been really exciting. It's a brand storytelling masterclass. It's super short, 4 modules. You can do it on your own in just a couple of hours, or you can spread it out. That's available on my website. But I'm developing a marketing course that will target to creative service providers who want to do their own marketing. And that's the case for a lot of businesses or people who are testing new ideas. Marketing is fun. It should be an extension of what you do. People are scared of it. So I really want to demystify the principles of marketing and show people how they can find confidence in their work and confidence in their brand, and that marketing can be fun and exciting. It doesn't have to, be a struggle or be avoided. So that's coming out in the fall too, at the end, hopefully around the end of October. And so that will be, I'll send you information about that as well. If you, reach out, just get in touch.
And we will put your website and everything into the show notes so that
Thank you
through that. And then I always, of course, end every episode asking, do you have a favorite quote or mantra?
Okay. Yes, I have several, but I'll stick to one. My favorite thing is that the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. Ooh. And I think a yoga teacher told me that once, like years and years and years ago. And I thought okay, so the way I fold the blanket and roll my yoga mat is how I'm going to approach everything. I left class okay, but it's stuck in my mind and it's true. Slow and steady is how I prefer to do everything. Maybe I take chances, but I don't look back. I don't have regrets. So the way you do one thing is the way you do everything, I think applies to a lot of things. So think about that. Can I share my other one
please do.
Piece of advice? Yeah. You don't have to know all the answers. You just have to know where to find them. And I think that's a great relief too for a lot of people who struggle to think, especially in our world now where you feel like you have to know everything. Yeah. You can't. You just have to know, who to tap for the right resources and where to go. So
we could have a whole other tangent about that, because I do. Yeah. People put up blocks because they're like, if I don't know all the stuff, then I can't do it.
Yeah. People get in their own way, and I hate that.
Yeah. Hearing it now, you have permission.
Yes.
To start and to figure out who you can ask for the things.
Yes.
You don't know.
Yeah. And even sometimes asking can be a struggle, but do it.
Yeah. Awesome. Ericka, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All of your wisdom on this episode. And
I really enjoyed it.
Who are in design, or looking to get in design, who want to know what it's like to live in 2 continents and how to make that work for yourself, go reach out to Ericka on sauritcreative.com. Well, again, we'll have it in the show notes. Thank you for listening to another episode of Your Brand Amplified, another fantastic expert. I'll be back again in a few days with another episode for you. Want more? Check out amplifywithannika.com or follow me on socials at amplifywithannika.